I'm a huge fan of getting invitations in the mail. I admit it. There's something about getting an invitation that lets me know that somehow in the person's mind who sent the invitations that I was important, that I ranked. I was somewhere, over other people that they didn't necessarily invite. And if you know anything about weddings nowadays, they're very expensive. So if you get an invitation to a wedding, you're really part of the family. They really see you as incredibly special and extraordinary, and they really want you to be there. And so you really go out of your way to try to make sure that you respond and that you go and that you are present because they have indicated how special you are to them and their family. I bring that up because that reality is not what happens on this Christmas night. It just isn't the way this works out. No one who should be invited to be the first to participate and to view the child are actually the ones invited. They're not here. Where exactly are the priests, the scribes, the Sadducees? I'm not saying that these aren't holy men and that they should not have been invited, but the fact is that God's outreach, what God wanted first at the very foot of his son's manger, was the outcast. And let me explain that to you a little bit. You and I, we love the shepherds because there are sheep, and of course everyone coming in today saw all the animals outside. And everyone probably took a picture already with the donkey or with the sheep. Come on, admit it. It's okay. It's fine. The fact of the matter is, shepherds in Jesus' day were actually seen as not being very good religious people. The reason for that was because of their work in the field all the time, they weren't able to actually go to synagogue. So they weren't there for the daily prayer. So they're not very holy or religious or righteous in the eyes of the Jews. On top of all that, because they're out in the field, they can't perform the purification rituals which are required and necessary. And as such, again, that is a slight against them. And so these shepherds that you and I look at now and we are really enamored with, really are invited by God to participate, but they are seen as the least of the Jewish community to come and to participate in their society. And yet God goes out of his way to send angels from heaven to let them know that they should go and they should look for a child. And the child's setting was going to be perfectly arranged and coordinated exactly the way the angel said. Look for a baby lying in a manger. Let's talk about the three wise men. We all have these nativity scenes at home, and we all have now, the little kings with the camels and everything else. But the fact of the matter is, they're not religious people. Not sure you're aware of this, but they're astrologers. They're following the stars in the sky. They're looking at the alignment of planets. And because what happens in the heavens has to be replicated here on earth, according to them and their beliefs, that the alignment of three planets brings about this brightness, this star, this brightness in the sky, that has to be replicated on earth. And so the birth of a king is what they understand. They come and they travel some 1,000 miles or more. This is an incredible journey. This is not an easy feat. And on camels, you can imagine it was a bit of a slow process to get there, but yet they are moved by what they see in the sky, and so they travel. But mind you, they are not religious men. They're not. They're simply astrologers. And notice, if you will, that God goes out of his way to invite those who are not religious, to be at the foot of this manger. And also, just so you know, one of the three kings by tradition is Melchior, and Melchior is an African. Unheard of to have an African man coming into Judea to worship a newborn king. But mind you, all nationalities, all races, everyone is invited. Let's take a moment and take a look at Mary and Joseph just quickly. Do you know Mary was the most common name given to women, given to newborn baby girls in Mary's day? Very popular. Everyone was a Mary. There's nothing exemplary about her. Joseph, her spouse, construction worker for all practical purposes. Nothing extraordinary about any of these people, and yet God draws them all and uses them all to come together for this night, for this event, where God steps out of the heavens and becomes one of us, one like us, so that you and I could no longer use an excuse and say that God is other than us. God has become man, and in taking on flesh, he connects himself in an intimate way with each and every one of us. And I know what you're thinking. Well, you know, this was a really nice play. This is a very nice pageant. Music was great. And indeed, all of that is true. But do you really think there is a coincidence about you being here tonight? What star led you here this evening? What star brought you into this holy and sacred place to see and experience this event in this way? Tell me if there isn't a part of you in the midst of this presentation that you feel your heart being moved. You feel as though you want to draw closer to God, that you want to come close, that you want to be there, but all of the voices, all the negativity radiates and resonates in your head, and you end up saying to yourself, you know, I don't really go to church. You know, I'm not really a very prayerful person. I don't really keep the commandments. I'm a sinner, and so my sins keeps me at a distance from God. And I would say to you that that's not the God, and that's not this event, this night. This night is open for everyone. Mind you, the kings are traveling such a great distance, and they come and they're expecting to see a king. Aren't kings supposed to be behind walls? Aren't they supposed to be protected by soldiers? Aren't there supposed to be armies protecting them? Explain to me and show me where this child is in any way, shape, or form protected with any barriers from anyone who would dare approach him. And so those barriers that are in our heads, those things that we think about ourselves, those things we think that God thinks about us, those things are not of God. They're simply challenges that we are faced with because some church, some pastor, some preacher said these things, and so we feel as though we are excluded. But this night, I don't see it. I don't see any of those things that keep us from God. I don't see any of those things that God is putting as blocks. If anything, God is as vulnerable this night as he was 2,000 years ago. It's up to you and I. We can choose right now in this place, in front of this scene, where we're representing one of the most holiest moments of what we believe as Christians to be true and to be the beginning of God's walk with humanity here on earth. We can simply allow ourselves to be vulnerable also. See, the problem that we have is that God is as vulnerable as we are. We could walk away. We could say all of this is nonsense. It's very nice. It's very pretty. The music was great. But really, is that what this night is really meant to be all about? Can we stop making the excuses that flood our minds and our hearts and allow ourselves to be vulnerable in response to God and say, God, you know, yes, I'm exactly this. I'm exactly the way I am and the way I'm thinking. I'm imperfect. I don't do things the way I think you would like me to do them. I'm lost. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm not sure what's next. My life is a mess. All of those things in some way, shape, or form become these barriers. But this Jesus, this night, is for us. He's for you. It's for me. Every single day, this birth can take place in the manger of our hearts. Every single day, we have the invitation to respond to a God who loves us passionately. And this child grows up and he spreads his arms upon the cross, and his followers come to understand that by his death and his resurrection, you and I are redeemed, that we have this intimacy with God that we never had before, we never had access to before. And probably the problem that we have now is that some institutions and whatnot and preachers, they put these barriers back up. They try to separate God from us. But this night is the reality of the invitation. It doesn't get any more vulnerable than this. There is nothing you need to be. There's nothing you need to do. Simply be present. Allow yourself to look upon the child. Allow yourself to see that Jesus loves you and became one of us for all of us to be one with him. Merry Christmas.